When it comes to booking a Utah ski vacation, Park City is perhaps one of the best known venues. The resort sits in a lively town, has been a training ground for professional athletes for years, and thanks to recent mergers, offers an astounding 7,300 acres of terrain. In this video, we'll detail Park City's overall mountain experience, and then we'll go over how the resort fares and our mountain score and rankings. Park City Resort is really two resorts, the formerly separate Park City and Canyons areas, which combined in 2015 to become the largest lift service ski area in the United States. It's hard to truly convey the full extent of this behemoth mountain's terrain in one video, but visitors will quickly find that there are plenty of options for all ability levels. In general, the Park City side offers more typical below treeline terrain and better groomers, while the Canyon side offers a more remote-feeling environment and specializes in glades. The Park City side is right in the actual town of Park City. The Canyon side is further away from town, but it offers a less crowded parking lot with easy access to the slopes from this cabriolet. The best beginner terrain is on the Park City side, where green-rated slopes abound across multiple mountain areas. This is even true in higher elevation areas, which is rare for a Rocky Mountain ski resort. That being said, the more challenging Canyon side only offers a few small beginner areas, and the areas in the middle of the resort have absolutely no green runs, meaning that there are no beginner trails connecting the two resort sides. In most resort areas, Park City guests won't be hurting for blue terrain. Plenty of moderately sloped, intermediate groomers can be found across the resort, although a few intermediate runs can stay ungroomed at times. Canyons blues tend to be slightly more difficult than Park City blues, but it's easier to pick up serious speed on them. Intermediate visitors will especially appreciate the Park City side's King Khan area, which boasts abundant cruisers, and the Canyon side's Dreamscape area, which offers a unique opportunity for intermediate level glade terrain. Experienced visitors will find a lot to like on both resort sides. When it comes to single black diamond runs, the Park City side offers a mix of ungroomed and groomed below treeline runs, while the Canyon side consists mostly of ungroomed trails and glades. Some runs are groomed on one side and mogully on the other. Park City's double black diamond rating only appears in high elevation areas. Both resort sides offer demanding mogul and glade runs with steep pitches and some cliffs. The hardest lift service lines are arguably on the Canyon side, with extremely technical runs in the Peak 5 and Super Condor glades. However, the most technical lines within all of the resort can be found on the Park City side off of Jupiter Peak, where a modest hike brings you to perilously pitched, rock-riddled terrain with very little room for error. Speaking of hiking, it's required to reach nearly all of Park City's true high alpine terrain. Lift service pretty much only extends to the treeline itself, with very little terrain actually above that level unless you hike to reach it. When it connected the two resort sides, the Quicksilver Gondola opened up lift service to a decent amount of previously hike-only terrain, although it still takes some arduous catwalking to get out of. Park City is a class leader when it comes to freestyle terrain, with 8 parks for all ability levels and 2 half-pipes. One zone here you might have heard of is the King's Crown area, where many of the world's most talented freestylers choose to hole up and practice. But even if you're not a professional, the resort offers generous features for freestylers of all abilities. Most features are on the Park City side, but Canyons offers an enjoyable medium-sized park and 6 unique natural halfpipes. While Park City offers unmatched acreage compared to the competition, the process of getting between the Park City and Canyon sides can make you want to pull your hair out. It takes 4 lifts to get from the Park City base to the Canyons base, and it takes 5 to go the other way around. This is in part due to the layout of the Quicksilver Gondola, which provides the only lift connection between the two resort sides and is in about as inconvenient and out of the way of a location as possible. Such journeys take at least half an hour, and that's if you know where you're going and you don't run into any lines. It's especially important to stay cognizant during the late afternoon to make sure you can get back to your desired base at the end of the day. This problem is exacerbated by navigational difficulties within the individual Park City and Canyons areas, especially on the Canyons side. The convoluted lift network means it's nearly impossible to get anywhere at the resort directly, and the process is usually a multi-lift affair. Some runs can take as many as 4 lifts to reach from the closest base, while others can take up to 2 to get out. And that's if you know what you're doing. The mountain is not forgiving, and in certain situations, you need to know when to cut over to get back to your desired lift. One wrong turn can mean a much more arduous journey to get where you're trying to go. Park City boasts high-speed lifts across the majority of mountain areas. The canyon's base offers better insulation from inclement weather, with both bubble chair and gondola options available there. However, some places in both Park City and canyons are only accessible by slow, fixed-grip lifts. The areas furthest away from the bases typically have the slowest lifts, and visitors have to go through at least one slow lift to get between the Park City and canyons bases themselves. And on top of all of that, long lines tend to build up at some notable resort choke points. The worst offenders are the Silver Load Lift, which provides the only convenient access to Upper Mountain Park cityside areas for Quicksilver gondola riders, and the Tombstone Lift, which has to be taken to reach the Peak 5 and 9990 areas and acts as a funnel for multiple canyons resort sections. That being said, things used to be much worse here before the Over and Out Lift provided a new alternative to get to the canyon's base. With so many areas so far removed from the bases, Park City offers multiple mid-mountain lodges to go into for a break. Thankfully, it's not too difficult to get to at least one of these from any part of the resort, although returning to some upper mountain areas isn't always easy. There are also plenty of opportunities to go in at both of the main bases, and while it's out of the way, you can also ski directly into the town of Park City for a stop there. Food options at mid-mountain lodges are completely overpriced. They're not quite as bad at the bases. You book a rocky ski vacation for the unique alpine environment that comes along with it, and for the most part, Park City has a vibe that fits that character. Many resort areas feel quite isolated and provide breathtaking views. Various lifts lead through absolutely massive canyons that will definitely raise some hairs with a look down. However, parts of the resort are rather built up and feel tacky, with the Daybreak and Dreamcatcher areas where multiple condos and roads scatter through being the worst offenders. Park City offers the light, dry snow that Utah is known for, and snow conditions are comparable to many other Rockies mountains. However, those expecting constant powder may be slightly disappointed. Despite being just a few miles away from the Cottonwood Mountains, Park City doesn't enjoy the same microclimate as those resorts and fails to see nearly as much accumulation. This lower average snowfall means early season conditions are much more variable than the Cottonwoods, although the resort employs extensive early season snowmaking operations to ensure a resilient base layer. So Park City offers a uniquely expansive footprint, a world-class terrain park setup, and, by far, the best après ski in Utah. In addition, recent upgrades have helped alleviate some navigation and crowd flow issues. But while snow quality and terrain diversity are certainly competitive, you'll find better snow, tougher terrain, and more modern lift infrastructure at other nearby mountains. And while the resort is certainly beautiful, it doesn't boast the one-of-a-kind, overarching presence one might expect from a 7,300-acre ski resort. Getting around this behemoth resort can still be quite trying, and many people will find it more practical to consider the two resort sides as separate areas. If you're trying to choose between base areas, the Park City side offers better beginner terrain, more terrain park features, and more intuitive local navigation, while Canyons offers a larger percentage of difficult terrain, more striking views, and more glade runs. Lift ticket prices aren't cheap, with one-day adult rates going between $150 and $200, so it's worth thinking through a vacation here before committing. Now let's go through how Park City stacks up in our resort rankings, which are determined by the following 10-category mountain score. Park City enjoys typical high-quality rocky snow, although it can't match the Cottonwoods, and receives an 8 in this category. While early season days can be hit or miss, major resort areas stay reliably open through the course season, and the mountain gets an 8 for resiliency. Park City is absolutely massive, the largest lift service resort in the United States, and gets our highest rating of 10 for size. Terrain diversity isn't perfect, but the resort has something for nearly everyone thanks to the sheer quantity of slopes, and it receives a 9 in this category. Park City definitely has some steep, demanding slopes, but it's nowhere near the hardest mountain in Utah, and it gets a 7 for challenge. Park City's lift infrastructure is decent but lacking in some ways, with hiking required to reach high alpine terrain, and it earns a 6 in the lifts category. Park City's crowds are generally well spaced out, but there are some major choke points in indirect lift routes, and the resort gets a 6 for crowd flow. Facilities are easy to access, but it's not always easy to get back to your desired slope, and the resort gets a 7 in this category. Navigation is a mess. Things have improved a bit in recent years, but the resort still only gets a 3 in this category, although it's worth noting this is up from a score of 2 before the over and out lift was installed. And finally, mountain aesthetic. Park City is certainly beautiful, but it's not exactly otherworldly, and it gets an 8 in this category. These categories add up to an overall mountain score of 72, placing Park City 4th in our Utah rankings and tying it 14th overall. For complete rankings on Utah and other North American regions, check out peakrankings.com.